Thank you, Rick. Okay, good morning, everyone. Let's
Good morning,
start
Amy
our
Jo.
celebration today with the joy song, I Celebrate, all 3 verses. Okay, welcome to everyone is there anyone celebrating with us for the first time? Okay, great friends, as always, thank you for being here. If you will, take a moment to turn off your cell phone or mute it. Okay. Our reader today is Pam Woods, and our musician is Chase Ketron. And Pam, we'll start with you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I've been directed to read this several times, and I've avoided it because it's a winter message. But I think that a lot of us sometimes experience winter during our summer. So I really feel like I felt driven to read this to you today. This is a koan from my Taoist devotional, and it goes as follows. A homeless man dies in the gutter. A tree cracks in the cold. A shocking sound. And this is my reflection that I wrote in 2014 for you today. The winter solstice, they call it the beginning of winter, but it is the shortest day. From now on, the days lengthen, even as the cold settles in. How earnestly our bodies ride out the winter. If we have the strength to see the honest stretching of the sun, reaching into our dark hours, we must grieve the giving up of our old ones, the loss of our jobs, and the early evenings that shut us out in the cold. The wind in the crackling trees can sound comforting from inside our warm houses with the sleet clicking on the roof. Someday we will break this cycle and enter another one, but perhaps not this season.
All right.
Thank you, Pam. Okay, our opening hymn is number 63, God is Love. Number 63, God is Love. And we will sing all 4 verses. Stand as you are able.
This morning, I decided to share with you an old familiar one, the 91st Psalm. He who dwells in the protection of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. Now, it's a little bit different from the King James Version because this is Dr. Lamb's version of the Holy Bible, and you remember that Lamsa was born and raised in such a remote place in Syria that they still carried on the kind of life that they lived back in Jesus' times, and they spoke the language that he spoke. That is, the common language of that village was Aramaic. And so he has a different view of this from the ancient manuscripts called the Peshitta, which were the Aramaic manuscripts. So I'll start again quickly. He who dwells in the protection of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God. In Him will I trust. And when he says the word fortress, what Lamsa is translating means protection. We have God's protection as guidance. Surely He shall deliver you from the snare of the fowler and from the vain gossip. He will cover you with His feathers, and under His wings you shall trust. What a beautiful, gentle picture that gives. And of course, it means that we are not only protected, but we are surrounded and filled with God's love and mercy. He shall be your shield and buckler. You shall not be afraid for the terror by night, nor for the arrow that flies by day, nor for the conspiracy that spreads in darkness. Usually that's translated pestilence. But he says this is wrong. It should be a conspiracy that spreads in darkness, nor for the pestilence that wastes at noonday. Thousands shall fall at your side, and 10,000 at your right hand, but it shall not come near you. Only with your eyes shall you behold the reward of the wicked. For thou, O Lord, art my trust. Thou hast established thy habitation in the highest. There shall no evil befall you, neither shall any plague come near your dwelling. For he shall give his angels charge over you, to keep you in all your ways. They shall bear you up in their hands, lest you dash your foot against a stone. You shall tread upon the viper and adder. You shall trample underfoot the lion and the great serpent. And this refers to enemies. Because he has loved me, therefore I will deliver him. I will set him on high because he has known my name. He shall call upon me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him. With long life will I satisfy him and show him my salvation. What a wonderful group of assurances of God's safety and His guidance, of His mercy and love. It's something that we can lean on and listen to at any time of the day or night. And we need to do that because life has its ups and downs. There are places in everybody's life where this kind of advice seems to stand out and call attention to itself. And we have to give thanks for that. We have to say, thank you, Father, for these words that we find in our Bibles that can make the difference between night and day in our lives. And now, shall we have our musical instrument? Oh, we have to do a statement of being, excuse me. God is all, both invisible and visible. One presence, one mind, one power is all. This one that is all is perfect life, perfect love, and perfect substance. I am the individualized expression of God, and am ever one with this perfect life, perfect love, and perfect substance.
All right, hello everyone.
Good morning.
Hey, Kate.
So for my first piece today, Julie had given me some suggestions, but she said, really, whatever you choose, they love all music, so I figured I would go out and pick one on my own. So this piece was originally written for piano. It is Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major. I'm sure many of you will recognize it. Marcel Moyes made a transcription for flute, and that's what I'll be playing for you today.
It's now time for our meditation. Is there anything in the prayer box? Well, in the meantime, shall we take a deep breath? And another deep breath. Because as we do this, as we shut our eyes and relax, find that that deep breathing has a way of not only calming the body, but calming the mind and allowing us to focus more narrowly, more completely on whatever it is we wish to address. And right now, what we want to address is the omnipresence of God and good. Within us, around us, in everything we see and smell and taste, touch, everything that interacts with us is an activity of God unseen. How wonderful to know that this omnipresent Spirit, the Spirit that the Bible tells us fills heaven and earth, is not only within us and with us, but is the source of mind and understanding and peace and love and joy and truth and every good. As we think on these things, as we recognize this omnipresent Spirit, we permit the expression, the flow of all that God is into our experience, into our daily affairs, into our bodies and minds, into what comes in and what leaves us. We become a conduit for everlasting peace and love and prayer and understanding. We have become that light that we don't cover with a bushel, but put on a light stand so that it lights our world. As we practice the presence of God, as we remember that God is right where we are, ideas come to us. Behavior that is kinder and more harmonious than usual comes forth from other people. God is dependable. Jesus himself said, "Of myself I can do nothing." His dependence was entirely on the Father of us all. That Father nature of power and wisdom and forthrightness, movement, and that Mother nature that is love and compassion, gentle guidance, peace, joy. For God is both Father and Mother to us all. In the 90 seconds of silence that we are going to have right now, not only do we include the people whose names are on these pieces of paper that I hold, we include our armed services serving both in this country and in far-flung places around the world. We include the leadership in our own country and in the countries around the world. We include you and the people you love, family and friends, strangers. We include them all, for in this time of inner quiet, we let love reign. Love in God, loving ourselves, seeing the good within ourselves, and loving everyone else. Do this. Do it now. Come unto me, all ye who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. And indeed, we can rest in Him, and what happens is ideas flow into our minds, or people come to us and say something that's helpful. We hear something over the television or the radio. It's all God. It is all God using those people around us. So we give thanks this day for omnipresence, for omnipresent love and help, for it is here. Whenever we labor or rest, God is. Amen. Shall we say the Lord's Prayer? Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed is thy name. Thy kingdom is come, thy will is done on earth as it is in heaven. Thou givest us this day our daily bread. Thou forgivest us our debts, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Thou leadest us not into temptation, but dost deliver us from all evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Amen. My talk this morning is entitled Change. Now, some people hate change. They just don't like it at all. Move their toothbrush, get some brand new exercise equipment at their health club, have someone park in their parking place, or sit in their pew, and they not only notice it, but they get very irritated by it. In a way, though, you know, they have a point. It does take attention and effort and patience to learn how to use different exercise equipment at the health club. Or it's not really great to walk further on a cold morning when you're tring to get to work. Of course, somebody took your usual parking place. On the other hand, there are people who love change, just love it. They get bored if life doesn't have a lot of activity in it, if newness and challenge isn't part of just about every day. I remember reading about an emergency room physician, and this man chose that specialty exactly because he thrived on challenge and that adrenaline surge that just always was there, because he never knew who was either going to walk or limp or get carried through the doors of that hospital, what he'd be called on to do or to know from one day to the next or 1 minute to the next. It could be a potentially mortal gunshot wound that he had to attend to, or someone who just needed a couple of stitches in their finger, an overdose that was in really bad shape and had to have immediate and very complicated attention, or perhaps just a sprained ankle and they put an ace bandage on it. Never knew what was going to come through the door. Every shift was different, every day was different, and that just was exciting to him. That was his cup of tea. He loved change. Now, how about you? How about you? How many of you prefer to be, let life be kind of dependable and familiar, kind of predictable? It takes a lot less mental and physical effort when things are kind of going along in a regular way. How many of you? A lot of you. Boy, okay, that's good. Now, maybe some of you don't like it to be just that way all the time, but like gradual change. You know, it happens, but it doesn't knock you down. How many like that?
That's me.
Okay, everybody likes that. Okay. How many of you don't mind change at all? In fact, it's a spice of life. It makes life interesting. And you just feel like, well, this day's going to be different. How many of you like that? Few of you. Okay. A few. Isn't it interesting how different people are? Of course, maybe your comfort zone really depends on what kind of change is coming up. Now, everybody would like to be invited into the boss's office and told they were going to get a good raise. That's a great change. But then nobody would like to be invited into the boss's office and told that their job had been eliminated. In other words, we all like what appears to be positive change and thoroughly dislike it if on the face of it, it looks very negative, very black. Don't know what's coming next. The unvarnished fact is that change is an incessant, absolutely essential part of life. Your body is constantly changing. Cells, millions of them, are being eliminated and replaced on an ongoing basis, daily. Now, if the body did not change constantly, if there wasn't ongoing renewal at all times, our lives would be very short. Dr. Harvey Hardman was an early divine science minister and author, and he had this to say: "The wisdom of the eternal teaches us, in nature and in human experience, that perpetual transformation is the very law of life, and that without it, the universe would be stagnant, dead indeed, and this would be the ultimate conceivable tragedy." Interesting words. Dr. Hardman is saying that, like it or not, change, he calls it transformation. I like that. Transformation is the law of life. It's going to happen. And we need to remember just a couple of important things about change. The thing we need to remember is that we must not be really quick to assume or to judge a major or even a minor change in our lives. Just label it immediately good or bad. Everybody knows that old story about the wise Chinese farmer. You've heard it, I'm sure, a number of times. They had one horse on the farm, and one day the horse got loose and ran away. Now this is bad news, because that horse was used for moving things around and plowing and all sorts of things. Bad news. And so his neighbors came over and commiserated with him and offered him sympathy of what a bad thing to happen. And the farmer said, good or bad, it's hard to say. Well, the very next day, the horse came back, and it was leading 7 wild horses. And it went right into the corral, and they followed it in, and they closed the door quickly behind it. They had 8 horses now. What they could do with 8 horses to help, they could sell some of them. It would be great. This was, and of course the neighbors came and said, what good luck! What a wonderful thing to happen. And the wise old Chinese farmer said, good or bad, it's hard to say. Well, a few days after all these horses arrived, the farmer's son decided, you know, whether we use them on the farm or maybe we sell some of them, they have to be broken, they have to be trained. And so he went into the corral and he tried to work with his horse, and he got on its back, and it would have none of that. It bumped him off. And he fell very hard, and he broke his leg. And once more, the neighbors came together, farmers came over, and saying how sorry they were that he had injured himself in such a bad way. And this wise old Chinese man said, good or bad, it's hard to say. About a week and a half later, the local warlord came to the village. And he forced all the young, able-bodied men to join his army. See, he was going to attack the warlord on the other side of the mountain. He better get a good-sized body of strong men, or he would never be victorious. And he told them, you either do this or I'm going to kill you. It wasn't a matter of, sorry, I'm busy. They had to do it. Well, he took one look at the farmer's son with a broken leg, and he just turned his back on him and walked away. Good or bad, it's hard to say. I know you've heard this story any number of times, but it teaches a very important truth to all of us. Something that we need to remember. We are, all of us, quick to judge change. We say, oh, it's either good or it's bad, and we say it pretty quickly, too. Something we don't like, that's bad. And we do this without knowing all the facts, without seeing the whole picture, because we can't see the whole picture. If we could see as God sees, we know that for certain it was really in divine order. There really is a reason and a rightness for everything. Now, we're usually not able to see that right on the spot. In retrospect, sometimes we will think, you know, if that hadn't happened, then this good thing and this, that wouldn't have happened either. And so we can see that instead of the label of bad that we put on it, there was a great deal of good in it. We're not able to do that, though. But that's only in retrospect. Right now, we judge. But one day, we will know all the whys, why that happened. In the meantime, though, we need to delay our judgment. We need to be less rigid about labeling things. Because, well, if we do that, if we delay, it can spare us some very difficult emotions. We put it on the shelf and try to judge it later, far later. Well, yeah, I guess. But what if the change is overwhelmingly painful? My guess is that everybody in this room has experienced that kind of thing, a painful change. It might be a loss, an unexpected loss of a long-term job, or a loss of a friendship. Had been friends for a long time, and then things blew up, and it wasn't a friend anymore. That felt like such a loss. It could be the loss of, or the death of a loved one, a spouse or a partner. It could be a divorce. Those can be very, very painful. The loss of a substantial amount of money, that can hurt real bad. Or the loss of a home, like when there's a fire or there's a tornado or something like that, and what was home is just some sticks. That's painful, a painful change. If there is a serious health challenge, or you have lost your freedom from pain, you're in pain. Those are things, those are changes that they are, without any doubt, things you don't want to happen. But how about that? Again, you try not to judge. Good or bad, it's hard to say. That's what the Chinese farmer spoke. Try not to label even those things bad. It's hard. Might take a while, but it's worth working on. We need to keep an open mind to hidden blessings, even in the most difficult circumstances. Now, we've all heard these words of wisdom, sometimes regarded as platitudes. There is no minus without a plus. One door closes, another door opens. There's no difficulty without an opportunity. And they sound lots of times just like words. Actually, there are certain words in almost every book of the Bible. And those words are, it came to pass. Find it all through the Bible. And that's just exactly true. Everything passes after a while. Everything changes. If we let ourselves hear those words, not just mentally, that this too will pass, not just mentally, but we let them sink into our feelings, we really begin to feel that things will pass, things will improve. And what happens is that we begin to feel some hope, some positive expectation. And when we do that, what we are doing is engaging the law of mind. And you remember what the law of mind is. When you marry positive thoughts to positive feelings, they are energized and they irresistibly attract a positive outcome, a greater good than you perhaps even thought possible. There is another very powerful tool when you are facing change that doesn't seem to be very pleasant at all. It's painful, it's irritating, frustrating, but there is this wonderful tool, and this tool is say thank you. Say thank you for X, Y, or Z, this thing that's like 70-pound, 700-pound gorilla in my mind, in my life. I should say thank you for that. Saying thank you and saying it again and again and again forces you gradually to change your perspective, to look anew. It's like putting on a pair of spiritual glasses. It's breaking the prison of an old, limiting, painful mindset and opening yourself to newness, opening yourself to energy and greater peace and creativity and fun and good. Thank you. I guess by now you have come to the conclusion that this talk was what I needed to say to myself, what I needed to hear myself. I hope some of you might hear it and find it useful too. And encapsulating what you're feeling in words is a difficult thing to do. But I came across a quote by a woman called Cheryl Richardson. She wrote a book called Waking Up in Winter. And this is what she wrote. And this really touched me. Gardening, like life, requires courage. We must be brave enough to cut back the old and sit with bare branches awaiting new growth. And we must trust that it will come. Right now, I feel like a lot of my life has been cut away. I've been pruned. And I'm sitting with bare branches. But, I know that a new growth will come. I know that. It has to come. It would be entirely selfish of me to want my husband back. Right now, he's experiencing the love of God. He's experiencing eternal life rather than the body and the mind that wasn't working anymore. He's at home. That's home. This is away from home. He's experiencing joy and reunion. He's experiencing every good. Now, I'm responsible. I'm responsible for remembering that good that he is experiencing. And I'm also responsible for expecting the newness and the satisfaction and the opportunities that are going to come to me as I begin to come into leaf and flower and fruit. And I need to say thank you to it all. Thank you, dear God. Thank you. That helps me put on spiritual glasses. That ensures that I keep growing in truth, that life is change, and growth and greater good are possible only through change. God is within and behind all of it. The mind, the activity of God, doing what God always does, and that is bringing forth greater good into life. Because he just can't do any less than that. That is what he does. The Lord's Prayer says, "Holy is thy name." Now, whenever you see name in the Bible, what you can do reliably is put nature instead of name there. Because name and nature meant the same thing. When you changed your consciousness, they would change your name. Abram became Abraham when he had this enormous realization that He had a great future. He had a great responsibility awaiting him. Paul was before he had that moment on the road to Damascus, he was Saul, but his consciousness so changed that they had to change his name. And then the same thing with Simon. Simon became Peter, the rock. So name and nature meant the same thing in the Bible. Now, this great prayer, the Lord's Prayer, is saying that God's nature is holy, which means whole and good, unconditionally loving and pure and powerful and possessing all knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, peace, abundance, every good. That's his nature. That's what he is, what God is. And because we are his image, our most fundamental nature, our soul nature, is exactly the same as God's. Change is not our enemy. Change is our opportunity for greater good. We all need to keep reminding ourselves of the words that I started out with in the 91st Psalm. He is my refuge and fortress. In other words, God is my protection and he's my guidance. He will cover you with his feathers, and under his wings shall you trust. Those feathers, those wings mean mercy and love and presence and help. There shall no evil befall you. He shall call upon me and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him. Those are God's words of assurance. Change is not our enemy because God is within it, behind it. It's our friend. Shall we go within? And give thanks for the changes in our lives. They might seem to be anything but good and pleasant and something to brag about and rejoice in. But in all of it, there is the potential for ever greater good, because in the midst of it, God is. Good is. Opportunity and newness is. Oh, Father, Mother, God, help us to look at it in a different way. Rejoicing in what good is to come. Amen.
Amen.
For my other piece today, shows some of J.S. Bach's music. This is from his sonata in C major for flute and piano. I played this at school last year because as a flute player it's very important to know the music of Bach. Everyone should know the music of Bach. It's all wonderful, but this is the Allegro, the second movement from the sonata. It's very lively and very fun.
school?
Yes, I'm a sophomore at James Madison University, or well, just finished my sophomore year at JMU.
Born there.
Yeah, I'm a music performance major there, and I perform mostly with the symphony orchestra and the Wind Symphony.
Awesome. You're phenomenal.
Thanks. I'm sure many of you know one of my former teachers, Julie Hickox. I'm filling in for her today because she's playing at a memorial service for one of her friends, but she was a big influence on me and wonderful teacher, and I still talk with her all the time.
Well,
Thank you.
we're thankful for that change.
Thank you for coming.
And as we prepare for the blessing of the gifts, Maurita, no, I can't say anything, I'm going to start crying. Just thanks for being open and sharing your personal journey and being a real-time example of how you're embracing change. Okay, sorry. All right, blessing of the gifts, and you can find the statement and what do we call that? Order of service. Order of service, thanks. I've got it right here. All right, so let's say it together. Today, I acknowledge God, omnipresent, as the source of all good, as the source of my good. With this acknowledgement, I accept His will, which is abundance in every aspect of my life. I release all thoughts of lack and limitation, and I am open and receptive to the increased flow of abundance to me right now. I joyfully accept the gifts of life and give freely of the special gift that I am. Through me, God omnipresent, blesses and multiplies this gift for all. Thank you, dear God.
Good morning,
So,
Jan.
had a great message, Maurita. Glad to have you back speaking again. For a while, so we're glad to have you back. Chase will be back again on his own without filling in for Julie. He'll be back, I think, in July. Julie had to be, and so he was kind enough to step in for her again. He's done a great job. Y'all, somebody got to hear the last time. I wasn't here the last time he played, but I understand he did a great
He played
job.
for us Easter Sunday, and he came better dressed than anybody.
Yes, I heard that.
He's an amazing young man.
So thank you, Chase. Thank you very much. So today is birthday Sunday, so let's get the important thing out of the way here. Jerry, Kate, Gil, and Jane. Jerry and Jane are here. The other two are not. So let's sing happy birthday. Let's see, May the 20th, we have our annual church meeting. It'll be right after the church service. The ballots were in from last week, and from the election. Everybody reinforced Ann and Melanie, so y'all stuck again. So we appreciate everybody voting, and we appreciate you stepping up and continue to stay on the board. Next Sunday, and there's 4 sign-up sheets in the annex. I'm not one of, I don't like to pass things around too much because they seem to get lost. So I ask you to look at the sign-up sheets. One of them is next Mother's Day, which is next Sunday. The men of the church is going to cook lunch for the people that don't have anything else to do. Some of us don't have mothers, and some of us don't have places to go. And so we've usually had a potluck. So this year, thanks to Doug, the men are going to provide us a lunch. So we need you to sign up if you're going to be here, so they like to know how much food to fix. They don't want to do too much and they don't want to do too little. So please, if you're going to be here next Sunday and stay for the lunch, please sign up. Also, there's a sign-up sheet in there for the birthday Sundays. Bob Dieter and I have been for the past year or so rotating the Sundays that we do the birthday cakes. I think it's time that maybe some other people help step up and do the birthday Sunday. So if you're somebody be willing to do a birthday cake for one of the months, we would greatly appreciate it. So we're starting with next month. So if somebody would sign up, and we'll see what happens. But
Would you accept a Food Lion cake?
Yeah, it'll have to be homemade.
Right.
well, no, you can make a cake. You got a mixer. Just saying. No, yes, it doesn't matter. I just think that Bob and I have been doing it for quite a while now, and I think that it's time that maybe somebody else helps out a little bit with that.
Yeah.
So, and I say we won't continue to do some, but I just think that somebody else should step up for a while and help us out with that. Also, there's another list in there that we had to take Wanda off of the list of schedules because she's not coming right now, and she wanted to come off the list of things. So instead of redoing the whole schedule, there's some blank spaces on the sign-up sheet for the reader and the usher, and I think there's a couple in there for pulpit assistant. So if you just look at that for the end of the year, there's maybe 3 or 4 or 5 spaces. And maybe you thought about reading, or maybe you thought about doing usher for once. Maybe this will just give you a chance to try it for one time. So if you look at that and see if you would sign up for something, or if you're already doing it and you want to do it for another day, that would help us out so that we don't have to redo the whole schedule again. And let's see, what else? Last week I think that they announced that in the past we had used to buy bulbs for daylilies. We do it on Mother's Day and Father's Day. And then we plant them all over here on the bank. And so Maurita had kind of wanted to do that again, but I talked to Kathy and Martha, and I think we have enough flowers. They said that they could separate them, and we could still have lots of flowers. So we decided instead of doing that, we would we're going to do this for Father's Day and Mother's Day, so I just made the list for one list, and that way, come Father's Day, we'll just make out the list and have just one whole list for Mother and Father's Day. But if you want to donate $5, or even more if you want to, but we're asking for a $5 donation. And that way, it will go towards keeping up the yard, or the church yard, or anything that makes the yard look good. Or since it's in memory or honor of someone, if you'd rather not go to that, you can put on there, I like my money to go to something else. It can go to music, or it can go whatever. But usually when people want to honor or remember somebody, they like to have it go to a special thing. So if you wanted, other than going for the outside, if you wanted to go to something else special, just write it on the list. So that sign-up sheet's in there. So there's all kinds of sign-up sheets in there, so please make yourself available for those. One other thing I wanted to mention too, there's another, we haven't talked about this much, but at the columbarium we have bricks for sale out there that you can put, have someone's name put on and say in memory of, or in honor of, or just have a name put on there. And the bricks are $50, so if anybody's interested in doing that, we haven't talked about it in a long time, but that is another money raiser for the church, and it's a way also to remember someone. It'll be the permanent thing that's there. So other than that, I think I've covered it all. So does anybody else have anything?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I wanted to mention that May is Divine Science Federation Month. And Federation is the organization that's sort of the central organizing body, and it's the one that publishes books and provides ministry sometimes to churches, sometimes helps them. Questions, queries come in about divine science all the time, and they have a center up in Vermont. That's where it is right now. The Federation, of course, needs continuing support. And because we're members of the Federation, the church sends a certain amount each year for it. But it needs other help as well. I tell you, if something happened and the Federation disappeared, I think divine science would disappear within 15 or 20 years or less. So it's our denomination. And if you've gotten anything out of the things that we teach, the things that we feel underlie all of life, that is the omnipresence of God, I'd like to suggest that you send a donation of whatever amount you feel you can manage to them to help the ongoingness of the whole denomination. We're down to relatively few churches, but the only way to see churches is through the Federation, through their help. So I appreciate your thinking about it. I'm going to have some brochures here next week for you. I won't be here next week, but the brochures will. And I thank you for considering that. And one other thing. I am not going to be here for the next 2 Wednesdays. I am going to be traveling. I'm celebrating birthdays with my family. Our grandchildren's birthdays and one of my son's birthdays. And so I don't know whether the group would like to consider continuing to meet or just be on vacation that 2 weeks, and I'll be talking to you about that. Thank you so much.
Also forgot to mention the flowers this week are sponsored by Maurita for David's birthday.
Oh,
Good.
please help yourself.
Sorry, I'm just sitting back waiting for something to happen. Okay, let's see. Our closing hymn is number 49, What a Wonderful World. Number 49, What a Wonderful World. What does through mean?
Sing it all the way through.
All the way through. Okay, stand as you're able.